The evening market was a ribbon of soft lights and murmurs, a place where stalls exhaled warm steam and fragrant stories. In the middle of it all stood a small cart decorated with paper roses and fresh jasmine. Behind the cart was a girl with a calm smile and a white ribbon in her hair. People called her Hana, the flower seller. Her roses never wilted until morning. Her jasmine stayed fragrant even after the rain, and her smile felt like a quiet lantern on a tired street. Arka arrived late, carrying a camera and a bag that had seen too many buses. He was a freelance videographer chasing small stories. Vendors, street musicians, kindness that didn't make the headlines but still mattered. He had heard rumors about Hana's flowers, how brides placed them under pillows for gentle dreams, how hospital rooms softened when her bouquets entered, how a grieving father once said her lilies made silence hurt less. Arka didn't believe rumors. He believed in footage. He lifted his camera, then put it down. Filming without asking felt wrong. "May I?" he asked, stepping closer. "I'm doing a piece on night markets." Hana looked up. Her eyes were steady, not shy, not bold. "You may," she said, "but only if you buy a flower first." She picked up a single paper rose. It was an odd request, but it made him smile. He bought the rose and tucked it carefully into his bag, then began filming. He captured how her hands moved, delicate, precise, like music made from thin stems and ribbon. People approached, an old woman bargaining for the smallest bouquet, a delivery rider asking for a bloom to carry between long shifts, a schoolgirl saving coins to surprise her mother. Hana listened to each person as if their voices were rare birds. She whispered, "For hope," or "For rest," or simply, "For tonight," and the flowers in her hands looked as if they understood. It should have been ordinary, but something hovered at the edges. Gentle, unexplainable. A breeze passed, and every candle flame near her cart brightened, not flickered. When she tied a bow, the knot held a little shine, the kind that made you think of moonlight over a lake. Arka tried to be practical. Maybe she used a special polish on the petals. Maybe her cart sat beneath the oldest market light. He framed wider shots, the lanterns, the passing feet, the stray cat curling under the wheels. He caught Hana laughing at something a child said, and even the laugh seemed careful, like a secret that wouldn't spill. "Your flowers last longer than others," he said during a quiet moment. Hana nodded, arranging chrysanthemums. "They last as long as they're needed. Then they rest." "Rest?" he repeated, puzzled. "All living things need rest," she said with a small smile. "Even wishes." A soft drizzle began. Other sellers hurried to cover goods, but Hana simply lifted a clear sheet over the cart. Raindrops gathered like tiny beads, not soaking, only kissing the petals. Arka kept filming, though a prickle traveled down his arms. The drizzle seemed to avoid her hair ribbon. Not a single strand dampened. A customer returned, the delivery rider from before. "The bloom you gave me," he said, breathless. "I kept it on my dashboard. I almost fell asleep on the road, but the scent woke me up. It smelled like..." He struggled for words. "Like morning." "Then keep it," Hana said softly. "Drive safely." He pressed money into her palm, more than needed. Hana tried to return the extra, but he refused and ran back into the rain, laughing like someone who had just remembered daylight. Arka lowered the camera. "What's your secret?" he asked gently. "How do you choose which flower for which person?" Hana's eyes held something deeper, an ocean behind window glass. "I listen," she said. "I listen to the quiet parts of them." A wind swirled down the lane, lifting a few paper petals into a playful dance. They circled the cart once, then settled where they began. Arka looked around, half expecting invisible wires, a hidden fan, a trickster. There was none. Just the market, the drizzle, the glow of patient bulbs, and a girl whose smile made strangers stand a little straighter. "Aren't you cold?" he asked. Hana shook her head. "The night has its own warmth." She boxed a small bouquet of baby's breath and daisies. "For you," she added. "No payment. Call it a good luck start to your story." Arka hesitated, then accepted. The bouquet felt lighter than paper, lighter than air, as if it might drift away if he didn't hold it with care. He thought, absurdly, that it smelled like the memory of a kind teacher. "Thank you," he said. "I'll come back tomorrow if that's okay." "I'll be here," Hana replied. As Arka walked away, the market behind him hummed in a friendly chorus. He glanced at the paper rose in his bag. It was glowing faintly, or perhaps the streetlight had shifted. He told himself not to read too much into it. Stories could be edited. Feelings could not. Yet the camera on his shoulder felt heavier, and somewhere above the night, the rain gave up and left the sky clear, a small permission in a city that seldom asked. Arka returned the next evening with a fully charged camera and a bouquet-shaped curiosity he wouldn't admit to anyone. Hana was arranging marigolds when he arrived. The market was busier, tourists mixing with regulars, fragrance braided with chatter. "Back for your story?" Hana asked, tying a ribbon. "And for more flowers," he said, surprising himself. "I gave yesterday's bouquet to my aunt. She said her apartment felt lighter." Hana's smile warmed. Ants deserve lighter rooms. As Arka filmed again, a man in a neat shirt approached the cart. He was polite but restless, checking his watch every few seconds. "I need something," he told Hana, voice low. "For a house visit. The family lost someone last month. They still can't sleep." Hana listened, then chose white chrysanthemums, blue statice, and a strand of jasmine. She wrapped them in plain paper, added a thin silver thread, and hummed, not a tune Arka recognized, soft as breath on a window. "Place this in the living room," she said. "Change the water at sunrise. Keep the windows open for a while." The man nodded and paid. "Thank you." He left, steps calmer than when he came. Arka caught it all. It wasn't the bouquet that fascinated him. It was the way people arrived tightly wound, then left as if a knot had been loosened. He turned the camera to Hana. "Who taught you?" he asked. "Your arrangements don't look like any shop's usual style." "My mother," she said quietly. "She believed flowers are small bridges. People cross them without noticing." "Can I interview you properly?" Arka asked. "About your mother, your craft, your day. Safe questions." Hana considered. "I'll talk," she agreed. "But only if you visit the place where I learned to listen." "Where's that?" "My home," Hana replied. "It's nearby." They closed the cart early, just as the moon rose like a patient coin over the roofs. Hana led the way through narrower lanes, past laundry that smelled of soap and a cat that refused to be impressed. They stopped at a gate barely taller than Hana's shoulder. Ivy hugged the fence. Inside was a small yard with stepping stones and a wooden bench. The air felt different, cleaner, as if it had been washed and hung to dry. "This is very peaceful," Arka said, lowering his camera without thinking. "Please film only the garden," Hana said softly. "Not the inside. It's old." He nodded and panned across the space. There were no grand flowers here, just herbs, jasmine, wild daisies, and a small tree with leaves that shivered as if remembering rain. A thin wind chime made a sound too soft to be called a note. "My mother used to sit there," Hana said, pointing to the bench. "She said the garden was a journal that wrote back if you were patient enough." "How did she?" Arka paused. A framed photograph had been placed on a stool near the door, a woman with the same smile as Hana, holding a bouquet near her cheek. A candle sat beside it, unlit but somehow bright. "She passed?" he asked gently. Hana nodded. 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Thank you." Her voice was steady. "I keep her rituals. I don't copy them. I listen to what the day asks." She stepped to the tree and touched a leaf. She said beauty is not the point. Care is. Arka filmed the leaves trembling. He could swear the air started to smell like a memory of rain again, even though the night was dry. He asked, "Do you ever get odd customers? People who want strange things?" Hana smiled a little. Sometimes they ask for impossible promises. I give them flowers instead. Promises wilt. Flowers teach you how to hold and let go. A faint rustle came from the side of the house. Arka turned. A grey cat he hadn't noticed before watched them from the shadow, eyes mild as tea. It stepped onto a stone and sat, as if taking attendance. Guardian of the yard, Hana said, amused. He arrived after my mother left. He stays by the door at night. Arka filmed the cat and laughed softly. Every good story has a watcher. Hana looked at the window nearest the bench, as if someone might be there, just inside, perhaps a memory standing patient. Sometimes when I tie ribbons, she said, I feel my mother's hands guiding mine. Not haunting. Helping. That's a beautiful way to say it, Arka whispered. Would you like tea? She asked. I have chamomile and ginger. Chamomile, please. Hana went inside, and the door clicked gently. Arka stayed with the garden and its polite wind. It occurred to him that he had not heard a single car horn since entering the yard. The city's noise seemed to stop at the gate, like shoes left outside a sacred room. He breathed, and his shoulders lifted as if allowed to. Inside, a kettle began to sing. Arka turned off the camera and let himself be only a visitor. He thought of his aunt smiling at the bouquet, of the delivery rider talking about mourning, of the man going to a grieving house. It felt like threads, all of them loosely tied to this yard, this bench, this quiet tree. The door opened. Hana returned with 2 cups and a small plate of biscuits. Steam curled in delicate shapes. As she handed him the cup, Arka noticed a thin white scar across her wrist. Nothing alarming, just a line like a healed string. From the thorn of a rose, she said, noticing his glance. A long time ago. It reminded me that beauty is sharp when you hold it too tightly. They drank. The tea tasted like warm kindness. Arka wanted to ask 100 questions but chose one. Why do you sell at night? Because many people are brave in the dark, she said. They ask for flowers they can't ask for in daylight. A soft breeze lifted the wind chime again. It made that almost note, like a whisper close to language. Arka felt the strange gentleness rise again, something between wonder and caution. He told himself this was a human house, a human story, the kind that could calm restless strangers. Yet as he left later, a paper petal from the cart's bouquets followed him out the gate, riding the air as if it knew his name. The third night brought a new rumor. A pair of teenagers approached Arka near the market entrance, recognizing his camera and guesswork. You're filming the flower girl, right? One said. Ask her about the bride who never arrived. What bride? Arka asked. They traded looks, enjoying the drama of half-told stories. A long time ago, the other said, a bride ordered a special bouquet, white and gold. She didn't make it to the wedding. But the bouquet did. Urban legends shuffle through markets like old shoppers. Arka filed it under maybe, maybe not. Still, the idea lingered like incense. He found Hana at her cart, wearing a pale blue cardigan tonight, the white ribbon steady in her hair. May I ask about a story? He said, framing her hands as they folded tissue. Which one? Hana asked, as if she had a shelf of them. The bride who never arrived. Her hands paused. Not long, but enough for the camera to capture. She tucked a sprig of baby's breath into a sunflower, then set the bouquet aside. People keep stories, she said. They change the water, change the vase. Sometimes the story grows different leaves. Is it true? He asked gently. Hana nodded once. A bride came to my mother years ago. She wanted a bouquet with a promise inside. Courage, steadiness, a clean path. My mother made it. On the morning of the wedding, there was an accident on the road. The bride was delayed. She arrived after sunset to find the celebration waiting with lanterns. The bouquet was there on the table, fresh as if the day had not moved. So she did arrive, Arka said, relieved. She did, Hana affirmed. But the market prefers the version where she doesn't. It likes the ache. I prefer the version where she chose to keep going. Arka smiled. So do I. He exhaled. There's something else. Since filming you, I've been sleeping better. No nightmares. No alarms rattling my bones. He laughed at himself. Maybe it's the chamomile. Maybe, Hana said, and there was kindness in the word. The crowd thickened, and customers lined up. A student buying a single carnation for bravery during exams. A mother selecting lilies to welcome a new neighbor. A street performer asking for daisies, for tips, not applause. Hana had something for everyone, and each bouquet looked like a letter folded carefully. A woman approached next, her dress dark, her face luminous with a kind of fragile brightness. She held a small photograph. Do you have flowers for anniversaries? She asked. When the person is not here? Something warm. Not sad. Hana studied the photograph and chose orange gerberas, small white roses, and fern. She worked with quiet attention, then handed the bouquet to the woman, saying, "Not sad. Warm." The woman inhaled and nodded. "Thank you." She paid, then touched the petals as if they were a shoulder she recognized. Arka recorded the exchange without intruding. A thought arrived. How many private moments had this cart carried and released into the night? How many times had a simple bouquet been the softest answer? "Do your flowers ever change?" he asked later, when quiet returned. "Like, after people buy them?" "Change is their language," Hana said. "Even the paper ones sigh a little if you're listening. But if you mean, do they glow or talk or turn into something else? No. They are flowers." She smiled. "And that is enough." As if the sky wanted to punctuate the statement, a distant thunder spoke, then decided not to visit. The market lights hummed. Arka adjusted his lens, and in the faint reflection on the glass casing of the cart, he thought he saw, only for an instant, another pair of hands beside Hana's, older hands guiding the ribbon into a perfect bow. He blinked, and the reflection was only his camera and a corridor of bulbs. "Your mother," he said impulsively. "Do you ever feel like she's still here?" Hana didn't look at him. She looked at the ribbon, the knot, the breath between her fingers and the fabric. "I feel like love learns how to stay," she answered. "It changes shape, but it stays." A simple sentence, and yet Arka felt something unwrap in his chest. He remembered the first time he filmed for someone he cared about, the shaky footage of his father teaching him how to fix a leaking tap. His father had laughed and said, "Make the camera our friend." His father had been gone 2 years now. The memory touched his shoulder like sunlight through branches. "Thank you," Arka muttered, unsure whether he was thanking Hana or the night. "You're welcome," Hana said, as if it didn't matter. When the market thinned, a figure lingered across the lane, as still as a dried leaf on a windowpane. A man in a grey jacket, hands in pockets, gaze fixed not on Hana but on the flowers themselves, as if counting them. Arka noticed him because he didn't move with the usual rhythm of a passerby. He was holding a pause too long. "Do you know him?" Arka asked softly. Hana followed his glance. "Sometimes the market watches back," she replied, non-committal. The man finally stepped closer. "Do you make bouquets for apologies?" he asked. "Of course," Hana said, her tone neither warm nor cold. "Tell me what you want to say, but briefly." He swallowed. "I left when I shouldn't have," he said. "And I returned when I shouldn't have. I don't want to touch the past, only ask permission to stand near it." Hana chose white lisianthus, blue delphinium, and a single ribbon of gold thread. She said nothing while working, then offered the bouquet. The man held it like a map. He paid, nodded, and left, the pause in his steps finally unclasped. "Strange one," Arka murmured. "Not strange," Hana said. "Honest, for a moment." When they closed that night, Arka packed his camera carefully. The paper rose he'd bought on the first evening had not faded. That felt impossible, but he had stopped arguing with small impossibilities. As they said goodnight, a scent passed them. Faint, familiar. Not jasmine, Not rain. Something else, something like the echo of a promise a bride kept by arriving, even after sunset. The next morning, Arka visited his aunt. He brought breakfast and the paper rose, and while he brewed coffee, his aunt fussed with a ribbon that had bound a box of old letters. "It won't untie," she complained gently, more amused than annoyed. "It's like it's grown stubborn." "Let me," Arka said, tugging. The knot loosened as soon as he touched it, almost too easily. Inside were letters from years ago, friendships written in faded blue ink, a postcard with a photo of a lake, a photograph of his aunt as a young woman holding a bouquet not unlike Hana's. On the back, in careful handwriting, "Keep going. It will make sense later." He left his aunt smiling at her old life and headed to the market, wanting to show Hana the postcard, to tell her the phrase felt connected to her mother's teaching somehow. When he arrived, the cart was open but quieter than usual. Hana was there, but her smile did not quite reach her eyes. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She nodded, then shook her head. Someone returned a bouquet. They said it was too kind. They wanted something sharper. She laughed softly. "I don't make sharp things." "Maybe they'll realize kindness was what they needed," Arka said. "Maybe," Hana answered, but the word didn't warm this time. A woman in a pale scarf approached with purpose. "I need a bouquet for a room that feels stuck," she said. "My daughter and I don't speak much. We live together, but it feels like a hallway that never ends." Hana listened closely, then chose pink carnations, lavender, and sprigs of eucalyptus. She tied the bouquet with a coral ribbon, and as she made the final knot, the ribbon tugged back. It was a subtle thing, seen mostly by hands and by people who pay attention. Arka paid attention. The ribbon did not want the knot to be too tight. Hana paused. She loosened it slightly. "Rooms breathe too," she murmured, mostly to herself. She gave the bouquet to the woman and said, "Place this between your chairs when you talk. Not on a high shelf." The woman nodded, eyes misting with the relief of clear instructions. She left with softer steps. After the rush, Hana leaned against the cart. "Sometimes the materials have opinions," she said, half playful, half weary. "I don't argue. I adjust." Arka reached into his bag and pulled out the postcard. "I wanted to show you this," he said. "It's from my aunt's old box. The note says, 'Keep going. It will make sense later.'" Hana took the postcard with gentle hands. She looked at the lake, the sky, the neat handwriting on the back. For a second, she looked like someone listening to a voice from another room. "My mother wrote this sentence often," she said, almost a whisper, "to people who came with tangled stories. Do you think?" Arka began, then stopped. "The world is large. Coincidences wander freely." Hana turned the card, studying the ink. "Whether or not it's her writing doesn't matter," she said softly. "The message is the same. Keep going." Arka noticed then that a thread from Hana's white hair ribbon had come loose, like a comet tail. "Your ribbon," he said, pointing. She smiled and retied it in one fluid motion, the loose thread tucking itself in as if relieved to be included. The grey-jacketed man from last night appeared again, this time without the anxious pause. He carried an envelope and the bouquet she had made for apologies. The flowers were still fresh. "I wanted to say thank you," he told Hana. "I delivered the bouquet. I didn't knock on the door. I left it on the step with a note. It felt right not to ask for anything." "I hope the room felt kinder," Hana said. "It did," he replied. "To me, at least." He placed the envelope on the cart. "A contribution. For your mother's garden." Then he left, unburdened. Hana didn't touch the envelope yet. She looked at Arka. The market is full of doors that don't look like doors. People step through them without realizing. As the sun lowered, a small commotion rose near the end of the lane. Someone had dropped a basket of fruit. Oranges rolled like cheerful trouble. People laughed and helped gather them. Hana smiled properly for the first time that day. I like markets best when they remember how to be kind, she said. A light wind moved along the street, lifting the ends of ribbons. The coral one on the empty wrapping fluttered and settled. Arka realized his heart had slowed in this place. He was breathing the way you breathe in a long, safe hallway that does end, and opens into a room with chairs facing each other. May I ask a bold question? He said. You may, Hana replied. Why is your beauty different? He asked, careful with the word. It feels steady, not the kind that shouts, the kind that doesn't leave a shadow. Hana held his gaze without flinching. Because it isn't mine, she said. It's borrowed. From care. From attention. From the way I was loved. When the day ends, I return it. Arka swallowed. That's the best answer I've heard. It's the only one I know, she said simply. They closed with the usual ritual. Flowers placed in water, paper stacked, coins counted gently. Hana finally opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph of an old house and a note that read, "The door is always there, even if you can't see it." No signature. Hana placed it under the cash tray with the reverence of someone adding a stepping stone to a path. The night after, Arka set up 2 cameras, one wide, one close, to record a final piece for his short film. He planned to title it, Paper Roses at Midnight. He had an intro, an arc, faces and hands, the murmur of the market like a living soundtrack. All he needed was an ending that felt true. Not dramatic. True. Hana arrived in a light dress and her white ribbon, as always. The cart looked the same, yet Arka felt a quiet shift, as if the story was walking toward its last candle. Ready? He asked. Ready, she said. They worked in easy rhythm. The wide camera captured comings and goings. The close camera watched the small world of Hana's fingers. A child asked, "Do flowers have birthdays?" And Hana answered, "Every day they open is a birthday." A grandfather bought a single daisy and told Hana he liked how honest it was. A tourist asked for something that smells like the first good decision I made this year. And Hana found it in lemon leaves and white blooms. Finally, when the crowd thinned to a human murmur, Arka asked the question his film needed. "What is the secret of your beauty?" he said, framing Hana against the lantern glow. "People talk about it. I want your answer, in your words." Hana looked into the lens, then past it, as if speaking to anyone who would ever watch. "Beauty is a side effect," she said softly. "It is what appears when care has done its work." "Care for what?" Arka asked. "For the moment," she said. "For the person in front of you. For the ribbon not too tight. For the room that needs air. For the apology that shouldn't demand an answer. For the garden that writes back. For the ones who had to arrive after sunset but arrived anyway. If there is any glow on my face, it comes from there." She paused. "And from my mother's love, which learned how to stay." Arka felt the ending land, not with applause, but with a gentle certainty. He lowered the camera a little. "Thank you," he said. "That's perfect." "Then let's add one last thing," Hana said. She picked up the paper rose Arka had bought on the first night and, with quiet ceremony, placed it on the corner of the cart. "Every story deserves a return," she said. At that exact moment, a breeze passed through the lane, gentle and deliberate. It lifted ribbons, not violently, but exactly enough to make each knot inhale. The paper rose turned slightly, as if facing a better light. The candles near the tea stall brightened for a breath and then settled. The sound was the wind chime from the garden, though they were far from it. An almost note, a whispered agreement. Arka could have called it coincidence. He chose instead to call it kindness moving through air. He packed up later, helped Hana close the cart, and walked her toward the quiet lanes. "Do you ever worry," he asked, "that people will demand more from you than flowers? Proof, perhaps. Miracles." "They sometimes do," she said. "I give them flowers. They are enough. If someone wants something larger, I remind them that care and patience are the largest things we're allowed to carry." They reached the small gate. The garden breathed its familiar peace. The grey cat was on the bench, a curled comma at the end of a good sentence. Hana lit the candle by her mother's photograph, and the flame stood steady. "Good night," she said to the photo, then to Arka, then to the garden itself. "Good night," Arka replied. He stayed at the gate a second longer. "May I visit again, without the camera? Just to buy flowers." "You never needed the camera to be welcome," Hana said. "But you used it kindly. That matters." He left with a bouquet of lavender and small white roses, the simplest arrangement of the week. He walked through the city that had become a little softer, and at every crosswalk he found, people waited a second longer for others. It might have been his imagination. It was good to imagine good things. The film went online a few days later. It did not shout. It did not claim miracles. It simply watched a girl with a white ribbon listen to people and make bridges out of flowers. Comments quietly piled up. "I called my mother after watching. I opened a window. I apologized without asking for forgiveness. I kept going." Arka kept the paper rose on his desk. It would one day fade, that was allowed. When it finally did, he planned to fold the petals into a page of his notebook, to carry the shape of a small kindness into other stories. As for Hana, she still sold flowers at night. She still chose ribbons that breathed. She still visited the garden each morning and spoke to her mother's love, which stayed. Her beauty remained the kind that didn't leave a shadow, the kind that belonged to the light shared between people who remember to look up and hold a door. If the market whispered about a secret, it was only this: that care, given patiently, is the most enduring enchantment. And if anyone asked for proof, Hana would hand them a bouquet and say, "Place it where you can see it. Change the water. Keep going. It will make sense later."